Hello and welcome, everybody. We're going to take a look today into the new Esri Developer guides. And with us today, we have our developer experience team. We'll be exploring the new developer experience, including redesigned guides, updated resources, and enhanced navigation features. We welcome you to this live stream. We want you to make sure to stay tuned for any future live streams we will be having on Tuesday, July 30th at 9 a.m. Pacific. We'll also be having another live stream about the Flutter SDK beta. I'd like to now turn it over to one of our developer experience team members, Alan Laframbois. Take it away, Alan.
All right, thank you very much. So just welcome everybody again. And my name is Alan Laframbois. I'm the product engineering lead for developer documentation. So we've done an incredible amount of work over the last year on our developer guides and the entire developer site. So I want to take you through some of the and highlight some of the high level features that you should be aware of, and some of the reasons behind the decisions that we made along the way. So there is a previous live seminar that's covering more of the overall initiative behind the experience behind the site. So I encourage you to check that one out. But I want to dive right into the new site today. So the good news, it's still developers.arcgis.com. So if you went there before, it's the same documentation site. It's now called Esri Developer, and probably the page that you'll use the most is the documentation page here. Now the documentation page is broken up into these developer guides. This is really what we're going to focus on today. We're going to dive into some of the content here. But if you're looking for quick jumps to your SDKs or the service APIs, like for location services, or if you want to get down to the reference topics, then those are all options as well. But this is probably the main page that you'll spend the most time on in the site. Then there's a features menu, there's SDKs. So these little menus just give you a quick way to jump to different pages and different sites within the entire documentation platform. Okay, I wanted to focus on this sign in button that's on the right hand side. So in the previous versions of this site, you used to be able to sign into a dashboard if you had a location platform or if you had an online account. Since then, we've changed that. So there's no longer a sign-in experience. So you'll be prompted with this experience that asks you to either log into your portal or to sign into ArcGIS location platform at location.esri.com. So that's actually it's location.arcgis.com. Stand corrected. So the important thing to note is that if you want to create API keys or build data services or hosted layers, then you'll go to your portal. And to do so, you need an ArcGIS Online or a location platform account. If you have a location platform account and you want to do some sort of administration, then that's when you'll go to the new ArcGIS location platform, which you see the outlink for here as well. So that's sort of a bigger change that's been made to the site, and it's definitely worth covering. Okay, but on to the developer guides. Again, we want to talk about some of the refactoring and some of the changes that we've made here. So we now have 6 developer guides that are focused on different tasks, and the different tasks are based on different services that you can use. So we have mapping location, portal, spatial analysis services, low-code, no-code app builder, security and auth, and then offline mapping apps. So I'll just jump into the mapping guide. So this is the mapping and location services guide. And I'll just kind of go through the structure because the structure is mirrored across all of the guides. So if you understand one, then you'll understand basically the design behind all of them. So there's a new guide landing page for all of the different guides. You'll learn about what's in the guide and some of the high-level services or features that are covered within the guide. And then below that, you can just jump immediately to one of the chapters if you want to start learning about building maps or data viz or place finding as an example. And then down at the bottom, if you just want to jump right to code examples, you can go to tutorials. And then of course, there's links to the related guides down further. So this is just an updated landing page to help you kind of get to where you need to go quicker. Um, if you're brand new to ArcGIS and you need an account, we have a new getting started page that kind of steps you through the process of signing up for an account. And there's this little drop down in here. I think this is kind of important because this there's always like a little Easter egg of information in here. For example, this gives you some of the differences between location platform, product, and an account versus getting an online account. So it kind of steps you through that. So there's definitely a lot of new information here that I encourage you to look at. So getting started helps you sign up for an account. You learn what you build. This kind of emphasizes the chapters. Learn about authentication because at some point you need to apply an access token to access services behind the scenes. And again, if you need help to learn about that, you can expand these little drop down menus. And finally, building an application. So this will get you directly to a tutorial. Now, it should be noted that some of the tutorials might not live in this guide. Architecturally, they could, the JavaScript Maps SDK display map tutorial actually lives in that guide. So you might launch to another guide. So just be aware that that's part of the design as well. Okay, popular topics. This is our what's new area. So if you want to see what content is new, you can go to the recently added area and you'll see some of the new content pages and topic pages that we have, things that have been recently updated. So it gives you some insight to that, and then some most popular ones. So we take a look at the click stats and all the usage for the site, and we'll be updating this on a regular basis. So that's popular topics. Underneath that, we have tutorials. And again, this is basically a summation of all the tutorials that are related to this developer guide. So in mapping, here you can see the categorization by 2D, 3D, base map layers, and it kind of goes on. So we kind of scroll through, you're basically scrolling through all the tutorials in the entire guide in one page. So that was the goal of this page, was just to really present to you where you could find instructions to either build apps, or if you just want to download the source code yourself and start building an app from one of these ones, you can do that from here. Okay, then in the center of the guide, as you can see here, we have the core topic chapters. So we have mapping and data viz and everything. And each one of these is roughly mapped to one service. So in mapping, it's mostly concerned around the base map style service, also data services. Data viz is data services, like the feature service is an example. Place finding is the places service, geocoding service, routing. So you get the idea. Basically, have a chapter section for each service, and then when you expand them, they'll basically expand into one or more pages for each of the operations on the service endpoint to give you an idea of how to use them. Then down at the bottom, all the guides have this reference area, which has just helpful information that is referenced throughout the guide or that you might be interested in finding. Um, and also we have tools, a tools section here. This is a big part, or should be a big part of your development process, is using tools like the portal, and then maybe the map viewer, and then other things within the portal to help with your development experience and to help with your development workflow. Or if you have desktop and you're using ArcGIS Pro, then there's a section here that basically covers that as a tool and the things you can do with it to basically assist with your data workflow. And data sets, if you're looking for data sets, this is a handy resource to check out. FAQ, of course, if you're looking for questions, things as simple as who is this guide for? And then you can understand that. And then what product do I need to start building mapping apps, and what products and account do I need to start using location services? So all of the typical suspects should be in here. Terms of use, and then glossary. I can't emphasize how important the glossary is, and just to remind folks to use it. So if you're looking for something like what is a geometry, then this is the official definition for a geometry, and then there's tutorials and related terms. So that's a handy resource, and we use that a lot internally. The last thing I'm going to show before I hand it over to George is one of the biggest areas we worked on for this release was trying to explain how things work, or what kind of process or workflow you should use. And I'll just go to this new how-to. So we have a lot of new how-to pages throughout the guides that kind of show you this stepper. They present the stepper that shows you the high level steps to get the job done. You might not find all of the source code here to do all of the work, but you're at least going to get an idea of the process for, in this particular case, building a map. Now, when you're building a mapping application, there's all kinds of different workflows. There's building a standard mapping app, a custom mapping app, using a web map, and then building an app from builders. So you're going to see different sets of instructions underneath each one, but at least this breaks down the process. So we create a map, we set up the base map. Typically, we either provide a base map or we use the base map style service. We add data layers, that's optional, and then we display it. We hook in the view to whatever device we're using. So you see this little prerequisite section here, and this will go to another new page that talks about, the kinds of mapping apps. So keep your eye out for these how-tos. We're hoping they'll be really helpful for you as well. On the right-hand side, you're also going to see the product support notes. So you'll be able to see the content on the page, like which products are basically supported by the content of the page. So I encourage you to take a look at those. And then, of course, we have the documentation feedback and a little survey down here. Okay, so that is a very short overview of the new developer guides and the structure that you can expect to find when you visit each one of them. And again, they've all been at least I would say somewhere between 50 to 75% rewritten, and now like they're a lot more organized and divided up into different areas to help you kind of get to the resource a little more quickly. So, okay, so that's all I have from a very high level. I'll pass it on to George now, who's going to talk to us about the service and authentication developer guide.
Awesome. Thanks, Al. So, hi, everybody. My name is George, and I write developer documentation on Al's team. Recently, I've been writing doc about security and authentication. So let me just share my screen here. So in our latest release, we have some exciting new updates to authentication for ArcGIS Online and location platform users. We've also published a new security and authentication guide here on developers.arcgis.com that documents all these changes, as well as about the process of authentication in general with your custom apps. So we can check out the new and exciting topics and popular topics. And the most important update in our latest release is the new version of API keys. So we've changed how API keys work and API key authentication in general. API keys are now created and managed using an item in your portal called API key credentials. So they're no longer created in your developer dashboard. Additionally, API keys are no longer permanent, and you can generate multiple API keys in a single set of API key credentials, which allows you to rotate them in your production applications. So I'm going to walk you guys through a demo of how to create these API key credentials and get a new API key and show you how to use it in an application. So let's get started. I'm going to head over to the new location platform website, location.arcgis.com, and I'm going to sign in with my personal account. So let's do that. Awesome. And now that I'm signed in, I can see my developer dashboard. And this dashboard is a place to monitor service usage and billing and manage settings related to location platform. If I click on the developer credentials tab, you can see all of the API keys and OAuth credentials that I've created with this account. Right now, I just have one. And if I wanted to, I could go in here to view the usage of the key. And this menu is going to show me all the services and data layers that this API key has been used to access. You can see that this key has mostly just been used for base map tiles. And you can even see a breakdown of when these were accessed and the billing periods, everything like that. But let's create a new key. So to do that, I'm going to click this big button that says create an API key. And this is going to link me out to my portal. And the portal is a web tool that's used to create and manage API key credentials, as well as hosted data, such as feature layers and a whole host of other things. If you use ArcGIS Online, this is probably really familiar. It's pretty much the same UI. And to create an API key in the portal, I'm going to click the new item button, and then I'm going to click developer credentials. So this menu allows me to select API key credentials, and these are the new items that are used to manage API keys. Every API key credentials item can have up to two API keys associated with it. And having two API keys is new, and it can be really useful because it allows you to rotate keys in your apps. So for example, say you have a mobile app and you deploy it to the App Store, creating a second key would allow you to seamlessly swap out the key in your deployed app without it ever going offline. So definitely a lot of useful use cases there. Right now, though, we're just going to create one key. So let's click Next and set the expiration date for the key. API keys are no longer permanent, so you have to specify the expiration date. And this is useful for security purposes too. You can do up to 1 year from the current date. So let's just do July 2025 and click Next. This menu allows you to set the privileges of your API key. So setting a privilege on your key will grant your API key access to specific services. And you can grant your key access to any location services that your account has access to. So I want to show you guys how to build an example Places app. So I'm going to enable the Places service on this key. And I'm also going to enable the basemap style service for a basemap layer. So that looks good. I'm going to click Next. The next menu allows you to grant access to specific content items in your portal. So this is stuff like feature layers or tile layers. I'm going to skip this since we're not going to use it here. And then you can add a title. Let's just call this like Places app key. And you can also add a tag. I like to add a tag that says API key to all my keys so they're easy to sort by. And then we can click Next. This summary menu shows you all of the data we've inputted so far. So these are the privileges we set. Here's the title. And if we click Next, we'll see another really important change that happened in the latest update. API keys are no longer permanent. So they're not stored. Sorry, they're no longer stored anywhere in our system is what I mean. So you can only see the value of your API key one time when you generate it. And once that's gone, you'll never be able to see it again. So once you generate the key, you must copy it immediately, and it's not stored anywhere in our system. Of course, if you lose your API key, you can always regenerate it by going to the API key credentials in your portal. So let's click Generate the API key now and go to Item Details page and click Next. This is going to create an API key. And once it's here, here's the value of our key. This is the only time I'm going to be able to see this key. So I'm going to click Copy to Clipboard. And now this is copied and I can close it. So before I lose the key, let's go ahead and put it in an application. So to build an app, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the developer documentation, and I'm going to check out a tutorial for how to use the Places service. So let's head back into the mapping and location services guide that Al showed off and check out the place finding chapter and go to tutorials. And here you can see we have a couple of tutorials that show how to use the Places service. I'm going to look at find nearby places and details, and I'm going to pick my preferred mapping API. Let's do Esri Leaflet. And this is going to take us to a dedicated tutorial that shows you step-by-step instructions about how to create this whole mapping application in Esri Leaflet. So this has some really useful steps in it. But what you can also do is go on the right and click Solution. And this is going to show you the full working application in CodePen. So this is a fully working app. The only thing we need to do to get this app working is to paste in our API key. So let's find where it says your access token, and let's replace that with our API key access token that we just created. So here it is. If I paste in my key, then the app will start working. And you can see here on the right, we have a functional mapping app now. And this app allows us to make a call to the Places service to search for nearby places. So if I click on the map, you can see it searched for places of this category within the circle. So looks like we're at Venice Beach, so we can check out like the beach towers. If we wanted to, we could look at restaurants instead, and check out details. And this is all accessible through the Places service, and it's powered through our API key. So that's all I've got. Yeah, this has been a demo of the new authentication updates. I'm going to pass it off to Kevin to talk more about the portal and data services.
Thanks, George. I'm going to share my screen right now. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Kevin Gonzago. I'm on the developer experience team, mainly focusing on the portal and data services along with the low-code, no-code guides. The one thing that I want to highlight here is the portal and data services guide that we've done an extensive rehauling of the guide itself. Initially, this guide used to be part of the mapping guide. And what we've done is that we've taken that out into its own guide, and we've separated it into a couple of chapters here called portal service, and data services. So I'm on the popular topics right now, and I just want to highlight some of the things like the portal, the tools, apps, settings, and image services. But what I really want to do is first dive into the portal's content itself. So the one thing that we've wanted to actually highlight for the developers is the actual portal itself. And portal can be seen as, if you're very familiar with ArcGIS Online and Enterprise, that's what we want to highlight for developers, is to not only introduce them what the portal is and some of the components that's part of it, how to access it, and obviously the capabilities, primarily the security and authentication around it. Because what you want to do with a portal is you want to create and store your geospatial data online in a secure fashion. And that's what the portal does offer that. And then the next thing is what George mentioned is developer credentials. And as a developer, that's one of the things that you really want to create first in your development journey here. And then obviously the content management from hosting data services like feature services, vector tile, map tile services, and so on and so forth. Those are all the capabilities that a portal offers to you. Now, kind of digging into some of the things that we want to highlight here are what George mentioned was the developer credentials tools, and along with that, the mapping tools. So I could simply just click along with all this, going down the list of the TOC here, but I just want to show some of the things that is part of your online experience here. What I have here is I've logged into my portal using my platform account. But as you can kind of see, if you click new item, you've got a lot of these tools that are available to you for you to create, from creating feature layers, developer credentials, along all the way down to raster function templates that are part of your image service that you can also attach to. And then obviously you've got your map along with your scene views, map viewer along with your scene viewer. Those are tools that allows a developer to create data, right, in 2D along with 3D. So then moving on to the one thing that I also want to bring before I move going on here. I've got a couple windows open here that I just want to bring to your attention. Here is there are too many tools here, too many windows here. So let's see. There we go. Okay, so the one thing about Portal is that it allows you to, as a part of a development process, is that you can definitely interrogate your portal in terms of what are the capabilities, what are the settings that the portal allows you to use to also configure your portal, and to also interrogate the portal and some of the services that it affords you to. So what I have here is a simple notebook that I created, and what it does is that this notebook allows you to the Python code allows you to interrogate the portal service, the portal, allowing you to then list out a lot of these services that come along with your portal. So for example, I just want to scroll up to the top here. It shows you some of the attributes that are part of your portal, right? So the one thing that I just want to highlight here, I'm going to scroll down to the middle of it. So this is like part of some of the services that you can use are the helper services. And this kind of touches upon some of Mark's guide in terms of spatial analysis. But the way you want to interrogate this is to allow the idea of interrogation of helper services to then allow you to, sorry, I'm kind of mincing my words here. The services that you have here are, like, for example, closest facility, right? So that's part of like a service that you can use to interrogate other areas around your service areas, right? And that is part of a service that is part of your portal that allows you to then wrap that service in your standalone application, allowing you to grab the closest facilities and render that in a map. So the next thing that I want to bring to your attention here is the portal service itself. Now, the portal really relies on the portal service in terms of providing content management. Sorry about that. Content management and securely hosting your data within portal itself. So now the thing that to realize about the portal service is that you use a service to upload data, to create content in your portal. So that is the one thing that we've decided to create is this chapter that really centers around portal service. We have a page really discussing the security itself, some of the settings, and what I touched upon is the how to interrogate your portal, how to do a self call, and so on and so forth. Now the items. Now we have everything that you store within Portal is considered an item, right? So if you upload a CVS, then you create a feature service out of it. That is considered an item that is stored within Portal. And then you've got your users and groups. And that's a good way of securing your data. You create groups so you can store not only exposed services within your groups itself, and also limit the amount of users that can really access the data that's part of the group. So, and obviously the main thing about Portal itself and using the Portal service is your search. The way you search, the way you search for items, search for users, and search for groups. The chapter itself really highlights how searching can be done within using the Portal service. Now, another demo I just wanted to show you is we've got a host of tutorials that really shows you how to go about using the Portal service, from copying hosted layer items, set sharing level for an item, or creating groups and adding members to it. So the one thing that I want to highlight here is the tutorial for setting sharing levels for an item. So, and what this demo does is that it shows you how to actually using the REST API, RJS REST.js, that is, on how to actually set your item access, right? So every item itself can be exposed as in a public, can be shared publicly within the organization or set privately. So this code really highlights the retrieval of the item itself, setting its public access to it from public. Initially, whenever you create a new item, it's set to private. So what this code does is that it's set it to public, right? Or alternatively, you can actually set it to org, to your organization itself. So the tutorial itself will kind of step you through that idea of setting the sharing level of an item. And that's part of the Portal service chapter. The next thing that I want to highlight here is the data services chapter within Portal Guide. So the new thing that we've added is the image services. So you guys are familiar with feature along with vector tile and map tile services, and that's part of the first iteration of the content management guide that was part of the mapping guide. So we've decided to add image services, and over the next couple of months or quarters, what we're going to do is also add additional services to this chapter itself. So the part of the last release, we've added image services. We've identified some of the ways of how to work with image services, some of the types of services that are available to you whenever you create an image service, from static image tiles to dynamic images. Now, there's a quick little piece of code that I want to highlight here is the way you would want to access and display an imagery tile layer. Now, part of what's available to you right now for a portal, whenever you sign up for an online account, is the imagery host is the ArcGIS image for ArcGIS Online. If y'all are familiar with ArcGIS image server, that's part of Enterprise. This is the same capability that's similar to Enterprise that is afforded to you if you're an online user. When you use this this extension, you can then host your own imagery online without the need for Enterprise. So this page itself kind of walks you through. Imagine if you've uploaded your data, your imagery to online, you want to then access it. So this is a quick little code pen that allows you to kind of access that layer. And one thing to note here is that I know George briefly touched upon using access tokens to gain access to a particular item within the portal. Now, imagine if you want to share this item publicly, so anyone can hit it. So there isn't really a need for an access token. So in this little code right here, code pen, I did not supply an access code because this item itself was set to public. So what I want to highlight here is within the map substance escape for JavaScript, the imagery tile layer class allows me to then supply an item ID, which is the publicly available image service, allowing me to then add that service to a map. I can simply click around and it allows me to then see what are some of the average temperatures for each of these areas here. So all in all, that is one of the major highlights that have been that was part of the portal guide that we added this time around. And I'm going to then kick it off to Mark for spatial analysis.
Cool. Thanks, Kevin. Let's get a screen going here. All right. Okay. Yeah, thanks, Kevin. My name is Mark. I work on the developer experience team with everybody, and lately I've been working on the spatial analysis guide. And we're going to take a bit of time here just to kind of walk you through what's new and what we've added in this latest release. And it actually really transitions well from both what George presented and Kevin. So the first thing I want to look at is, as Alan mentioned, the structure of the guide follows the framework that we set up for all the new guides. The introduction page has been added. And one of the things we really want to kind of call out is there's really two kind of types of analysis and where that analysis occurs, either on the client side, so in the browser or in ArcGIS Pro, and then on the server side, right, where you're sending a request to an endpoint or a server to run that analysis and kind of provide you back the results. And so we have some sections here about the differences between the client side analysis and server side analysis with code samples. I also want to briefly, call out the FAQ specifically for spatial analysis, as there are some caveats with location platform accounts performing feature analysis. Currently requires you to use OAuth authentication, so API key authentication is on the way, but it's currently not supported. And then for the new chapter that we've added, raster analysis, that will be just for online and enterprise users. So the geometry analysis and feature analysis, those have been in place for a while. The new items that we've added is this raster analysis chapter that walks you through working with raster analysis, what it is, why you would use it, and then what are the different ways to perform analysis. So there's really two forks in a road, kind of raster operations, which is the server side analysis, where you send a single request to the server to perform some sort of operation on your raster data and get returned a new data set back. One of the things I want to kind of take a look at today, though, is raster functions. I think they're really interesting, and I also kind of piggyback on what Kevin said in regards to tools, right? So there's if we look at the raster functions how-to page, all right, we have our prerequisites here to kind of what's needed to use raster functions. And the first step is kind of determining what your analysis is, what functions you want to use. So we've got a kind of a breakdown of a table with all the functions grouped based on what they do and what their use case is. Specifically, though, integrating tools into your development platform or development workflow. There is a tool called the raster function template editor in online that allow you to create these raster functions, which you can string multiple operations together in a single request. So it's really kind of will help your development workflow or process. You can use a nice GUI tool to generate these raster functions. So we've got some quick steps here in the how-to of how that's done. And once you've created it, it will create a new item. So I've got this item here. So let me sign in. Sorry. Go back. Not sure why I wasn't signed in there, but so we've got a raster function. I can drag multiple functions onto the screen to generate them and build this process of a raster workflow right into using the out of the box tool, and that will generate this item, right? So we've got a input raster and what raster we want to run this function on. That'll get then computed, right? We'll do the process of the computation, remap the values, and then change the color and categories of the output to that. And once we have that template in our org, we can then programmatically run it just like we would do it in the map viewer, or in Pro. You can download this template and run it in Pro. So what we've got is some samples here, sample with multiple code samples of running using a raster analysis performing a raster analysis with raster functions using Python, ArcGIS, REST.js, and ArcGIS Maps SDK for JavaScript. So we'd take a quick look at the code for performing a raster analysis in JavaScript. And what we'll do is, as I mentioned, to perform analysis, we need to use OAuth authentication. So I'm leveraging the JavaScript API here using the portal class and telling the portal to authorize immediately, right? So as soon as we come into this app, right, we'll get a prompt to sign in, and we'll add our credentials there. And let's just take a look at the code to see how that happens. So we're setting the auth mode to immediate, so we get the prompt. Once that portal has been loaded, we can then, log out the username, so it sees that I'm logged into as my dev account here. And we've also used the portal, as Kevin mentioned, the helper services to grab the raster analysis URL, right, of what URL we want to use or associated with our org or portal to run these tools in the web browser. So we've got our raster analysis URL. We're logged in. We've added the base map. We've added a DEM currently. I'm just going to fire this off because it'll take a little while to run. And so we'll add the layer to the map, right? Create a view. And we'll kind of get into the interesting part here is start providing the parameters. So what here, right after the portal is loaded, we've actually gone out to our portal, grabbed that raster function template that we created in our content. We grabbed the JSON out of that, and if we look over here, I've just got Postman. Looking at that same raster function template, you can see that that raster function template is actually a big block of JSON with all the information needed to run. So we can ask our portal for the JSON. We get all the values there. Just makes it a lot easier than having to kind of hand code this. There is a nice library in Python you can use to generate raster function templates as well by stringing together different functions that will output this. But in terms of a GUI, this is probably the easiest way to do it. So we'll grab that item. This is our function template. We'll grab the data, the JSON data out of it, and then provide that to our job parameters object here. So we're going to pass in our raster function item template. We'll give it what the URL to the layer we want to run it on, in this case that DEM, and then we're going to give it a name, right? So we'll call it the Santa Monica Terrain Ruggedness Index. And then we'll use the JavaScript SDK geoprocessor to submit this job. When we click this button, that's what occurred. We'll submit the job and let it run on the server. So we're doing a server-side operation here. And once that job has succeeded, we can then go grab the output, which will be a new raster file that you see here in our code pen, right? So it's gone out and grabbed the results, and we can take a look at it, right? And the terrain ruggedness index is telling us, kind of the representational, how rugged this surface is. And so you can see, we've kind of run the analysis. Right? We can also run use that same function from the map viewer. So I'm over in the map viewer here, and in the analysis tab, if I go to raster functions, right? We can see all the provided raster functions, but I can also open that function I have in my code and run that the same exact way. And we'll give it a name and we could run it. So I won't do that now, but in the spatial analysis is a large topic on its own, and so raster analysis again is kind of the new addition that we've added uh, options for or mechanisms to run these operations programmatically. So with that, I guess I will pass it over to Cheryl.
Thank you, Mark. Hey, everyone. I'm going to be preparing my screen today. All right. Yeah, so my name is Cheryl. I work for the developer experience team on the documentation side. I work on the offline mapping apps guide, which is what I'm going to be talking about today. So we have a brand new developer guide for building offline apps, and this guide is especially designed for developers who want to build offline apps using ArcGIS Maps SDKs for native apps. If you go to this guide, you will see that it has topics about the newly defined two types of offline apps, which we have partially offline apps and fully offline apps. We also have overview page for the different mobile data sources that you can use to build your offline apps. And on the table of contents, you will see that we have sections for both types of offline apps, complete with their introduction page, their conceptual how to, and the appropriate data sources to build the apps with. And we have tutorials as well as workflows tailored for each type of offline app. And I'm going to discuss about workflows in a bit. Now, we all love code examples. The good news is that all of the code examples in this guide have all been updated. And for Kotlin developers, all of the Kotlin examples that you see in this guide support the new Compose UI framework. On top of that, we have also added an exciting new tutorial for creating an offline enabled web map. This tutorial is the perfect precursor to the tutorial for creating an offline map area and then displaying it on your app using a native SDK of your choice. But the most exciting part of this update is that now we have something called workflows. If you're not familiar with workflows already, these are step-by-step detailed tutorials that teach someone completely new to the offline world on how to create an offline app from scratch. The workflows include steps from data preparation all the way to actually building and setting up the project using an ArcGIS Maps SDK for native apps of your choice. And currently, we have 5 workflows. We have workflows to create an app using a web map with 2 different approaches, which is using the ahead of time development pattern and on demand development pattern. And then we also have workflows to create a web map with feature layers. And lastly, we have one to create an offline app using a mobile map package built in ArcGIS Pro. To give you an example of what you can achieve from the workflows, if you're a Swift developer and you want to build an offline app using a map with a feature layer, you can go to this workflow and then you can create a feature layer. For this example, we are using a parcels feature layer for the city of Santa Monica. And then you put it in a web map and then you take it, then you need to enable it for offline use, and then you set an area of the offline map that you want to take offline in your portal, and then you will follow the steps for ArcGIS Maps SDK for Swift in your Xcode, and then It will help you. It will help you set up the project and download the web map area into your device. Now, as you can see, only this region is accessible on your device because that's the offline map area that you have defined, and you can interact with it on your device without network connectivity. If you want to learn more about how to do what I just did, I invite you to explore this guide and try out the different workflows that we have prepared for you. Now, I'm going to hand it back to Alan for wrap up.
Okay. All right. Can everyone hear me? Okay, cool. Yeah, so first of all, I want to thank everybody for joining us here today, and just thank the team for all the work they did to share the deep, as you can probably tell, there's a lot of deep level work that went on in the system and to build out these new guides. And can you guys hear me okay? I just want to make sure it's not. Okay, perfect. Thank you. The big thing is, like the mission of the developer guides is to provide a high level example or high level workflows on how to use the system, and basically allow you to follow step-by-step how-tos, tutorials, workflows, or just download the code itself. And that's totally an option for you using the developer guides. The other thing that I think is important is the content is available in multiple languages. So you'll see different options to use different languages as you go through the guides as well. So I think the big things, another big thing, important thing to mention is the fact that all the code samples we showed today are in the developer guides. So you can find the code by going to the developer guide, finding the notebook, finding the tutorial like Cheryl just showed us here, or going through the step-by-step instructions to create an API key like George showed us. Same thing with Mark with the raster functions where he used tools, and Kevin for using the portal service to make the self-call. So that's important for you guys to know. So pay close attention to the developer guide work that's going to occur in the future, and to give you a sneak peek, I guess, of what's going to happen. We want to write more code samples for sure, more how-tos. Keep the tutorials, coming, especially in the area of security, image services, visualization are some of the focus areas that we have. And then obviously focus on supporting some of our new services that are coming out. So I wanted to mention this. If you didn't know, we just launched the elevation and static base map tiles service publicly that you could actually join. You could get access to by joining our early adopters program. So if you're interested in elevation or static base map tiles, then please go to our early adopter program. So I think that's about all for today. So I'll hand it back to Amy, and thank you very much for joining me.
All right. Well, thank you, Al, and thank you all so very much for attending a look into the new developer guides. We hope you were able to walk away learning more about the developer tools available to you. We look forward to seeing you at the next one on Tuesday, July 30th at 9 a.m. Again, that's the Flutter SDK that you'd want to check out. Please be sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to follow us here. You can certainly leave comments there for us if you have any or any questions. We'll be sure to get back to you. You can also find us on X at Esri Devs, or you can email us at developers@esri.com. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.